Hey there, it is a beautiful spring day in the middle of May here in Oregon where we are, and while we have some spring bear seasons going on, or maybe some turkey seasons going on, we're actually here to talk about preparation for elk hunting in the fall or in the winter. And while it may seem strange that it's nice and beautiful outside and we're preparing for elk hunting, now's the time of year to accomplish a lot of the things you need to accomplish before your season starts, not 2 weeks before your season starts. So we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about some stuff that you can prepare for in the off season. All right, so a few things that we want to talk about. There's a couple different things to prepare for when going into an elk season. One of those things, of course, is figuring out your maps, your destination, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, all the logistics side of it. There's the physical preparation that you should be doing before a season to make sure that you're physically capable of getting to where you want to hunt. And the other side is the gear that you're actually going to be using and taking with you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit specifically about the gear side of things. And again, this is the right time of year to figure this stuff out, not right before the season. One great example of gear that you should be figuring out early in the year are something like your boots. If you're going to get a new pair of boots, if you struggle with your boots or it's just time to replace them, do it now. You don't know going into a season what's going to be available. You might need a lot of miles on a pair of boots to make them comfortable. Some people can pull them out and they're totally fine out of the box, but out in the woods is not the time to figure that out. So do it fairly early on and be prepared for the season as you get into it. Another great thing to figure out early in the season is your glass that you're going to be using. You don't want to be out and have trouble with your binoculars or your rifle scope or something like that and struggle with it through the hunting season, throw it in a tote till the next year, and you don't touch it again. And you're going to forget about it. And then before you know it, you're back out again with the same stuff that you were struggling with last year. A good example is, if I look right now, I have no rangefinder in my rangefinder pouch because I found out, I guess this was 2 years ago, that my rangefinder didn't work right. And it's one of those things that I've forgotten about, couldn't replace it, and then before the season, everything was out of stock, so no rangefinder. And again, now would be the time to figure that stuff out. So some other things to focus on, your first aid kit if you're carrying one out in the woods. Sometimes you use stuff out of there and pretty commonly you forget to refill it back up, so make sure all of that's restocked for your hunt. You may want to focus on the clothing that you're wearing. Again, this would be the time to get it, make sure everything's working for you. Sometimes when you're out in the woods and you're hunting, you figure out little nagging things like maybe my pack creaks, or maybe I had something sloshing around how I had it packed last year. Now's the time to fix it, or else you're going to forget and you're going to go through it all again in the fall or the winter when you're hunting. And another thing is get your kill kit together. So if you need a new knife, if you have a replaceable blade knife, make sure you have those replacement blades if you used them last year. Game bags, make sure that's all together, and make sure you have everything going into the season. Again, all this is stuff that you don't want to worry about right before the season. Supplies may be out. You may not be able to get something. Everything might be out of stock, or you may not be able to find the one that you want because it's right before hunting season. Now is the prime time to be shopping for that stuff. So in getting prepared for your elk season, that also applies to your rifle if you're shooting a rifle during that season. If you're planning on making any changes to your setup, you want to do that early on. If you're going to change your scope, if you're going to get a new rifle, say you're going with a new cartridge that you've never used before, make sure things like ammo are available. We've seen big ammo shortages. Make sure the optic that you're going with is available. We've seen big optic shortages at times. So figure that out while it's available so you have what you want during that season. Otherwise, you might come up short-handed. Make sure that you get it mounted up with some quality mounts. I have this scope set and a pair of our Warne Mountain Tech scope rings. Check certain things when you take it out of the safe for the first time. You might have some rust or some damage from your last hunting season. Make sure it's all sorted out. Do you need a new sling? Just go through the whole system and make sure that your rifle is all set up. One thing to consider is when you're going out and getting prepared for the season, don't just shoot your rifle from a bench one time and leave it from there. Make sure you get out and practice. So let's consider the terrain that you're going to be in. Let's consider the type of shots that you're typically going to make. You know, there's a lot of areas where you're probably only going to be taking offhand shots. you might be taking kneeling, unsupported shots most of the time, and maybe if you're in some more open country, you might be able to get prone. Those are positions that you should be practicing, whatever you're most likely to encounter when you're hunting. I'd be willing to bet that there's quite a few hunters out there that have shot their rifle off a bench and maybe haven't even shot it in a few years. And shooting is a diminishing skill, so you need to get out and practice. Don't be that guy. But do everything that you can before the season to put yourself in the best position to make a good shot during the season.